All right, so I'm back with yet another quick Pauper deck tech. So this is the latest version that I've been playing of a Gruul Landfall deck using the new landscapes from Modern Horizons 3, which I think have made this deck a little bit faster and a little bit better, not necessarily competitive yet. I still am working out the kinks of the deck and just optimizing some of the card choices, but the landscapes are certainly better than the Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanses that landfall decks have been running in the past in order to get multiple landfall triggers, purely because these can produce mana the turn they come into play. So if you're not familiar with these cards yet, these lands from Modern Horizons 3 have tap, add one colorless mana, but they also have tap, sack, search your library for, in this case, a basic mountain, forest, or plains, and put it onto the battlefield tapped. Then you can also cycle them for one mana of each of those three land types colors, which in this deck we're Gruul only, so we're not getting the cycling benefit. But I will, in future, in the coming days, make a Naya deck using things like Step Links and Wild Nakatl just to see how that does. And in that deck, we will be able to cycle it. But even without the cycling, it's just good enough because, as I said, it's essentially an Evolving Wilds that can produce mana the turn it comes into play, so it doesn't have to slow us down. So I'll quickly dive into the main crux of the deck. So obviously with Landfall, we use creatures that get stronger when lots of lands enter the battlefield, and then we use effects like Sakura Tribe Scout, which is 1 green for a 1/1 that says tap, you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. So we use that along with our, you know, Evolving Wilds type, sack and search lands to get 2 or 3 landfall triggers per turn to buff our creatures and swing for a lot of damage. So what creatures are those? In the 1-drop slot, we've got a Akum Hellhound, which is 1 red for a 0/1 that says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +2/+2. So we can reliably get 2 landfall triggers a turn in this deck, meaning this gets +4/+4, which is pretty damn aggro. Then Step Links is the exact same card, but it's white. But in this version, I thought I would just try to streamline it a little bit and just stick to red and green rather than white. But possibly a version splashing white is better, but I'll have to just test that out. Then also we're running Curd Ape, a classic card which is sadly not quite as competitive as it once was, but it's 1 red for a 1/1 that says as long as you control a forest, it gets +1/+2. So that's, generally the case in this deck, that this will be a 2/3 all the time. Then since we're a Gruul aggro deck, Burning Tree Emissary is basically an auto-include, so it's 2 for a 2/2 that says when it enters the battlefield, add 1 red and 1 green. So this allows us to power out 2/2 drops on turn 2, which is pretty nice. And the 2-drop that we would ideally like to be powering out is Plated Geopede, which is 2 for a 1/1 with first strike. And it says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So basically, this is reliably a 4/5 with first strike, which is obviously quite a damn strong body. So it's kind of the main threat and centerpiece of the deck. Then at the top of our curve, we are just running 3 copies of Territorial Scythecat, which is 3 for a 2/1 with trample. And it says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Territorial Scythecat, so that the benefit of this is that it doesn't just get pumped for a single turn. The counters obviously stick, so it stays buffed and it stays strong. And then the trample means it's actually punching through for damage, even when it's blocked by smaller creatures. Then, just for a bit of card draw, we're running Highway Robbery, which is a cool card from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. It's 2 mana for a sorcery. You can plot it, so you may pay 2 and exile it from your hand and cast it later on a later turn without paying its mana cost. We won't necessarily be doing that often, but it is nice to have. But the main effect is that it says you may discard a card or sacrifice a land. If you do, draw 2 cards. So, in this deck, generally I think we'll be sacrificing a land to draw the 2 cards, but we can also discard our bad cards or the cards that we don't need. So this is just to restock our hand and get us going. Then Chain Lightning and Lightning Bolts are there just to be able to deal direct damage to the opponent's face if we need it, and to eliminate troublesome creatures. And then finally, the last card in the deck, one of my favorite green instants, is Vines of Vastwood. which is 1 mana. It says target creature you control, or sorry, actually, excuse me, I misspeak. This is a notable point to make. Target creature, so not a creature that you control, any creature, can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control this turn. If Finds of Vastwood was kicked and the kicker cost is 1 green, that creature gets +4/+4. So I love this card both for essentially giving our creatures hexproof, and for pumping our creatures, and for also disrupting our opponent's plays by making it so that their own creatures can't be targeted by their own spells or abilities. So that can often mess with your opponent quite a lot. If they're ephemerating Muldrifters, or they're sacrificing Benevolent Bodyguard to give a creature protection, this can annoy them a lot and really work to your favor. Then the sideboard is pretty rough. Just Tormod's Crypt, Ancient Grudge, because it's such great artifact hate in the Gruul colors, End the Festivities for other weenie decks, and then Snakeskin Veil as a way of giving our creatures hexproof while also making them a little bit stronger. So there's the deck. It's obviously a very flavorful deck. The idea, the archetype has been around for years and years and years, but it's never been especially competitive, and it probably still isn't, to be honest, but the landscapes do increase the efficiency of this deck quite a bit. And one further point I will make about the lands is that we are running 4 copies of Gruul Turf, which enters tapped. It taps for 1 red and 1 green, and it says when it enters the battlefield, return a land you control to its owner's hand. So that allows us to return lands to our hand so that we can play them again and get more landfall triggers. But also there's like a cool combo. If you have 2 Gruul Turfs, you basically just can repeat your landfall every single turn, because you play the Gruul Turf, returning the other Gruul Turf to your hand. Then you play that Gruul Turf next turn and return the other Gruul Turf to your hand. It's basically just consistent landfall triggers. But I will end the video there. As usual, if you have suggestions for ways to improve the deck, please let me know. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. And thanks for watching, and I shall see you next time.